we're up to Halacha Yomi. We're up to page 287. It's 20. A person's allowed to perform a melacha, even for a person who's not in a life-threatening situation. But if he doesn't get proper assistance now, he could develop into a more serious condition. Therefore, diabetic is allowed to inject himself with insulin in order to prevent himself from coming to a life-threatening situation. However, if the situation he's in will not really lead to a life-threatening situation, so you're not allowed to break Shabbat. Okay. 23. One is allowed to violate Shabbat to assist a choleh sheyesh bo sakana, even though the melacha you're doing is only to minimize his pain and not directly saving his life. All right. So let's say you have a person who's deathly ill, and he's asking you to do something just as bad or do something for him that's melacha related, but it's not gonna heal him right now. He's just in pain. He's uncomfortable, so he wants you to make him comfortable. You're allowed to. That's also part of saving his life and to help him heal. So therefore, you're allowed to do it on Shabbat. Better to do a shinui when doing so. Okay. 24. A person who has internal illness that can be anywhere inside the body is considered life-threatening. So let's say a guy has internal bleeding, right? Internal bleeding, even though there's no open wound on the outside and the inside is a wound, that's also considered life-threatening, and you should go and break Shabbat for it. Okay, saving a limb, 26. Shulchan Aruch says in Seif Yitzayin that you may not violate Shabbat to save a limb, but today you're allowed to. Why? Because you might get an infection, and it might come and lead to a life-threatening situation. Maybe somebody, Chas v'shalom, I heard this many times, people close the window, the kid's finger was there, Chas v'shalom, and he got severed his finger, so if he doesn't go and fix it on Shabbat, and he go to the hospital on Shabbat, God forbid, he could get infected, the wound, right, and he'll lose the finger. So for the sake of the infection not becoming life-threatening, so you're allowed to break Shabbat, or even if a Chas v'shalom accident happens, right, guy loses his leg, guy loses his arm, that's a big wound, so it's life-threatening. Okay, 27. Someone who dislocated their limb, they're allowed to desecrate Shabbat in order to treat if a doctor deems it life-threatening, right? So a person who has a dislocated limb, it could lead to things getting into the bloodstream, and God forbid something could happen to him. So therefore, also life-threatening. Even allowed to take X-ray in order to know how to pop it back in. However, if it's not life-threatening, so then you should not desecrate Shabbat in order to treat it. I remember one time, one of my sons, he fell on his arm behind him, and he dislocated his elbow, and he was in a lot of pain. And I was thinking, should I break Shabbat? Should I not break Shabbat? Should I call it not call it? I said, you know what? I'm not going to break Shabbat, but I'm going to go and take care of him. How? I'm going to go to the Hatzalah guy's house. I'm going to knock on his door. Maybe he can help me. So he wasn't there. Where was he? He was on a Hatzalah call. He wasn't there. So, but his wife was a pediatrician, a children's doctor. So I told her, listen, my son, he dislocated his elbow. Listen, can you help me? She's like, I don't know. I said, please, you could do it. It's not that bad. So she saw him. She saw it wasn't so bad. She said, okay, we'll try. So she goes and she takes his arm and she's going like this, calming him down, distracting him, and all of a sudden, it goes back in place. And we didn't have to break any Shabbat. We walked to her house. She just moved his arm. That's it. And we went back to home like nothing happened. So just a practical advice, it's good to know who's a doctor nearby you, where they live. That way on Shabbat you could at least walk to their house, and if it's not so life-threatening, or maybe you don't know if it's life-threatening, you could go and ask them on Shabbat if it's life-threatening, and you'll make a decision that way. But if you don't know where they live, so then you're automatically stuck. You're going to break Shabbat for everything. That's not necessarily a surah, just saying from experience that it's good to know where the doctors are.
IV in Shabbat or no?
Are you in danger?
Sick.
What does that mean, sick?
You can live in a day or two, it's no problem. But
You're going to die in a week if you don't get IV?
Yeah.
So you have some sort of disease. Some people get IV because they have the cold, they have the flu. COVID?
Yeah.
If a person's going to die if he doesn't get IV, yeah, you're allowed to get IV on Shabbat. But just because you're in bed doesn't mean that you got to call somebody and get IV.
How about son? Can do it for his father or not?
To give IV, better that he shouldn't do it.
Better
somebody else. But technically, if we have what to rely on, because he shouldn't make you bleed. Okay, good. Your son's an NP, no? And your son's a doctor?
Yeah.
A PA. He's a PA, right? Okay, good. 29. Somebody who is wounded through a metal object, such as a knife, may be treated on Shabbat, may even put cream on the wound in order to avoid infection. Right? Similarly, it's permitted to violate Shabbat for any wound that the doctor says is life-threatening. Let's say a guy got stabbed by a nail, right? Didn't get tetanus shot, so that's life-threatening. The doctor said you could get infection. A few days it's untreated, and that's it. You could choke and die. The infection will make everything close. You won't breathe. So therefore, a person he feels that he got stabbed by metal and it was dirty and he didn't get a tetanus shot, then he could break Shabbat. He could go to the hospital. Okay, 30. A bite or a scratch for an animal that has potentially rabies should be treated immediately. Similarly, a person who's stung or bit by a snake or a scorpion, he's not sure if it's poisonous, he should break Shabbat and go and take care of it. Someone who has severe allergy to wasps or to bees also gets stung, he's allowed to go and treat it on Shabbat. Okay, 31. A person who has life-threatening injury, he needs to close a wound, he needs stitches. He's allowed to have even more stitches in order to avoid not having a big scar. Even though extra stitches is not necessary to save his life, but once you're doing the stitches already, you're allowed to put extra in order that it shouldn't be a bad scar. Fine. 33, it's permitted to violate Shabbat to treat an eye injury or illness that can permanent effect in your vision. So let's say a guy says, right, God forbid, the chemical went in the eyes, right? So the guy says, oh, listen, what's going to happen? I'm not going to die. I'm not going to die. I'm going to be fine. No, but your vision, if you don't go to the hospital now, your vision is going to be bad. So you're allowed to break Shabbat for that. You don't have to become blind because of that. So therefore he says, even if you have an intense infection, intense pain, loss of vision, or a cut, even only in one eye, you can still see through the other one, you're allowed to go and seek medical care immediately, even on Shabbat. There was a story I just saw the other day, that the guy was a plumber. Somebody knocked a bottle, and it was acid. It went in his eyes. He's a Jew. Then he wasn't able to see, got headaches. Then he went to the hospital. They put more stuff in his eyes, flushing his eyes. He was in tremendous suffering. He couldn't see anything. Everything was blurry. So then they sent him home. You know, in Israel, they Tapaseder, after that. He goes home, he says, "What am I pito? I'm going to America." He was in Israel. He flew to America to a specialist, and he said to him, okay, we got to go and make a test for you in a few days. We'll see if we can, this will determine if we can fix it or not. Because the outer layer of your eye is very, very damaged. People can't usually see if it's damaged. Yeah. So then he goes and he made a promise to Hashem. He said, Hashem, I'm gonna uberi the chametz. I'm gonna get rid of the chametz, and you're gonna give me my eyes back. He took TikTok. He deleted TikTok from his phone. He went to the specialist a few days later, and he said that your eyes are fine. Your eyes are fine. He was able to see. He was able to see like nothing happened. Acid in his eyes. They said that he burned out the second layer of his eyes. He says, I see perfectly. He's not blind whatsoever. Why? Because he said, Hashem, I'll use my eyes for good things. Not to waste it on my free time to watch these things. Hashem says, no problem. Right away, I give you back your eyes. Okay, let's finish over here. We'll stop over here. Baruch Hashem.